Well, hello, this is Chuck Thornton from RC Thornton Accounting Group. Hey, you may have heard about this thing. It's about entities. It's talked about FinCEN. It's called Corporate Transparency Act. It's called all sorts of different things. What's FinCEN stand for? The Financial Entity Crime Enforcement Group. Are these guys serious? Are they going to have us file all these different reports? Are they just crying wolf because there's already two cases that say you can't do this? However, you need to be prepared just in case it turns out you do have to file, which we think you will. So Congress back in 2021, once upon a time, had this idea, wouldn't it be nice if we registered all these different companies, all these different owners, so we would know who owns what. So if we know what we need to do, we know who to go make a phone call to. And so they gave Congress, they gave FinCEN basically a couple of years to come up with stuff. I guess half the people who passed this law are probably gone by now, so they're not accountable for it. And so they've come up with this Corporate Transparency Act that requires people to register. And yes, you most likely are going to have to register some of your entities, if not all, by the end of this year. So let's just go through a few things on this. Who has to file? What entities have to file? Basically, if your entity was formed through the state, like the Arizona Corporate Commission, or through a foreign entity, if it was formed officially through one of these state government organizations, you most likely are going to be an entity that is required to do some filing for this. Now, there is exemptions, and typically those exemptions for companies that already have regulation, like for instance, brokerage houses, insurance companies, and so on. And in this particular case, if you have more than 20 employees in your companies, more than $5 million, there's an exemption from filing for that. Which brings lots of questions. What happens if you have 2 or 3 companies that have collectively income over 5 million, collectively over 20 employees, but is only that if you add them up together? And FinCEN would say no, it's per company that you have to do that. So now the question is, who's the beneficial owners of these companies? And typically beneficial owners is a fancy way of saying who's influential, who's in charge of these companies, who has a lot to say. And they start off with anyone who's more than a 25% owner of the company. They break it down between voting and non-voting in that particular area. But then they have this catch-all about, or anyone who has influence, like a CEO of a company, even though they may not be an owner. This brings up the issue of trustees. Trustees of a trust and the trust owns stock. This may be very common for our clients. Are they a beneficial owner? Is the person who set up the trust and has a revocable trust, are they beneficial owners? You notice I'm not trying to give you answers. I'm just trying to stimulate the thinking process on this. So we have entities that have to file. We have beneficial owners. I would dare say this is probably going to be 80 to 90% of our clients. And then you get what's called an applicant. The applicant is the person who does the filing at the state level or the foreign level. In most cases, it will be the local area, the state level. And that probably is going to be the attorney, but you may be a do-it-yourselfer and you may be doing your own. And those applicants have to be disclosed basically after January 1st of 2024. If the entity was formed before then, you don't have to do that. Okay, what kind of information are you going to provide on this? And the information you're going to provide is the name of the company, the address. Beneficial owners are going to be the ones that you're going to have to disclose. John, such and such an address, real addresses here now, by the way, contact information, and also a copy of a driver's license, birth certificate, not birth certificate, a travel passport, or other types of identity. Kind of things you're probably not too excited about copying and having it being up on the internet somewhere. And by the way, we're going to talk about how you can get a FinCEN number in a moment. When you need to do this, there are a variety of times. I have to use a little cheat sheet here, if I may. I'm just going to read a few of them. For existing companies in existence prior to the beginning of this year, they have until January 1st of 2025. As a practical matter, you might as well get this done pretty soon, and I would definitely not wait till January 1st of 2025. I think a lot of you might be at parties and you might forget this otherwise. If your company is formed after December 31st of 24, then you have 90 days to do it, and then after if you have changes, it's in 30 days. that you'd have to do that if the company was formed after the 25th, 2025. Also, too, if something changes with your entity or nothing changes with the entity, it may be the only time you have to do a filing for this. Okay, who does this? Well, the logical thing is to think is, why wouldn't my CPA be doing this? And it turns out we're not going to be doing this, and we want to explain why, and we want to talk about how, if you're not going to do this yourself, who you might want to look out for to do this for you. The question is this practicing law? And many scholars, many lawyers, many malpractice insurance carriers are telling all the CPAs out there, this is probably practicing law, and you're not qualified as a CPA to practice law. One may say, well, wait a minute, what about taxes? Well, that was an argument way back in the 40s, well before my time, and the conclusion was that the IRS agreed that CPAs could prepare returns and do some limited representation up to a certain level. There's a big debate with the American Bar Association and so on this. And so that was an exception of which has not taken place with FinCEN, by the way. FinCEN is not part of the IRS. So as we stand right now, it's probably practicing law. Might change in the future, but that is the status right now. So who are the people that we think can do this? Well, we think lawyers very clearly could be doing this. How about these other organizations that are going to pop up, like the ones who did the ERCs and the PPP? Everyone has to make their own decision as to whether they think they should be able to do it, and you as the user have to make your own decision as to whether you want to use those places, if you want to do it yourself, or if you want to have your attorney do it. For do-it-yourselfers, if you go to the fincen.gov, FINCEN.gov, you'll find what's called the Small Entity Business Compliance Guide. A lot of pages, but a lot of good information. I think that probably the majority of our clients can do this themselves. You actually go online to do this information, and you can use the Small Entity Compliance Guide to help you get you through that. If you happen to have a lot of estate and trust, you have different entities, multiple entities, different LLCs, management companies, and we do have clients like that, maybe you might want to have your attorney guide you and catch you on this. Our role is we can talk to you in generic situations. We can say, here's how the rules apply, but our practical law starts with where we now start saying, and in your situation. So if you have general questions, certainly give us a call, but specifics, we're going to have to punt it over to the attorney to do that. Now, you're going to be able to do this online with FinCEN. You might take a look at it now. Those driver's licenses, those passport things that you really don't want to be giving out, you can get a FinCEN number, do it one time, and then if you own multiple entities, you just use your FinCEN number instead of driver's license and everything, so that you only have to disclose this one place, one central location. You might want to do that now. You might at least want to get your FinCEN number. There's going to be over 30 million people applying for this stuff, and they're starting to do it now. And you can guess when you start getting down to November and December, it is going to be quite extensive. You might have backlogs and jams on this whole system. So you might want to get your FinCEN number now. While you're at it, you might want to go ahead and just apply for it. Well, are they just crying wolf, like I suggested at first? I don't think so. They have so much time and money in this thing. They started this back in 2021. They've come up with the rules. What they're trying to do, so they claim, is trying to basically trace money for terrorist activities, drug activities, and things like that. Goals of which I think probably most judges would say are good goals if someone really took this to court. So you could wait, you could see whether this is going to be considered to be not legal. I don't think it will be, but I don't want to be an attorney. But for me personally and for us here at the firm, we're starting to do our own filings now because we're not too worried about someone having all that information anyhow. Besides, when you really think about it, you can actually get it from your tax return. So who knows why they did it this way, but I would encourage you to do that. Give us a call if you have general information. So thank you. And you'll find, by the way, this information on our website under training materials with the links also at the same time. Happy filing.